Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
What's up, y'all? Wes Blankenship here, DawgsHQ. It is the 2023 early signing day special here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. Y'all hit subscribe, give us a like, give us a comment if you are new to the channel or if you've been here before. Georgia already bringing in a few signings this morning. I'm going to pull this up really quick so y'all can see who's already enrolled, who's already signed in, already gotten their paperwork in. You know, a lot of this is kind of a formality for some of these guys. They've been ready to go. They've already had it. But here you go. Let me pull this full screen. And you see the Harrises. AJ Harris, he is enrolled. He's already in. But Georgia had another Harris, Daniel Harris, the flip from Penn State, who joined into the fold this morning. And you know, his recruitment was wild and woolly. What's up, Jake Rowe?
What's up, man?
Just talking about Daniel Harris and his recruitment. I guess Daniel Harris so far is, I guess, the most drama Georgia's had so far today.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, just kind of getting him back in the fold. Biggest piece of news there. Came into the day with 9 guys kind of already enrolled. The way that works is, for those that don't know, I mean, yeah, you can still sign, but it doesn't really matter. Once you take part in any sort of team activity, any sort of coach-directed team activity, once you get there, you're already part of the team. It's going to take a transfer for you to go anywhere else at that point. And Georgia has 9 of those guys already in the fold, and several more are going to early enroll. But Daniel Harris, man, I heard you saying, I think you used the word woolly.
Wild and woolly. Yeah.
Wild and woolly. Yeah. That's about how it was.
Yeah.
I had every, like, and there aren't a ton of them, but I had every permutation and combination on my mind when it came to Daniel Harris and Kyron Jones, and Georgia still hasn't gotten Kyron Jones in the fold. He did decommit. Was that yesterday or the day before? They're all running together.
Yeah, I think it was the day before.
Yeah, day before. So, yeah, I mean, you know, it looks like Georgia's going to get both. They definitely got Harris back, which I think is a big deal because I like him. I think he's got some length to him that a lot of other guys don't have, and he's a good looking prospect. So I think that's a really good get back for Georgia, and I think also you know, if they can get Jones in the fold, that's a high upside guy as well.
6'2", 175. Jake, I remember when Kirby first took over, that was kind of like a line of demarcation between his defenses and what Georgia fans had seen in years past from some of the guys that Rick's staff recruited. Was Kirby's got to get these tall cornerbacks. He's got to get these guys that are 6'1", 6'2". And now it's just kind of run of the mill. That's who they get. That's who comes in.
5'11" or better, man. I mean, 5'11" or better is where you want them. And you like them 5'11". You like guys 5'11" with 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2" length, like a DeAndre Baker. You know, he was in that 5'11" range, listed as 6 feet, but you know, they've probably had a couple more guys. You know, Eric Stokes is probably like right on the dot, 6 feet. Tyson Campbell's, I think, 6 foot and some change, right at 6'1", maybe. You know, those have been really good players. Georgia, the thing that they're doing, man, and it's the reason they're able to do what they've done in this class, West, at defensive back, with all of the high quality type players, with, you know, AJ Harris and Chris Peel and Justin Rhett and all these 4-star players. The reason they're able to stockpile them is what they've done in the NFL draft. And you look, and, you know, DeAndre Baker, Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell were all picked in the top 33. You've seen some other defensive backs get taken. Obviously, Lewis Seam was a first-round prospect. You know, the Richard LeCount went in the 4th round. Georgia's put a lot of guys in the NFL from the defensive backfield. Mark Webb got drafted. after starting his career as a wide receiver, made a roster. So they've just had so much success with coach after coach. I mean, they're on their 4th defensive backs coach, I believe, or maybe 3rd. Is it 3rd or 4th?
Yeah, I'm trying to go back and think. Fran
started with Mel Tucker.
Mel Kirby was kind of doing it too when he started.
Yeah. But I'm just talking about from a title standpoint. Yeah, Jamal Adai.
Yeah,
but he didn't follow. He didn't come right after. We're missing somebody, and I can't even remember who it is. Charlton Warren.
That's right.
Charlton Warren. So yeah, 4 defensive backs coaches, and they just keep churning them out.
Yeah, that's one of the hallmarks of Kirby Smart's staff that he's figured out how to do early on is just how to manage that turnover.
Yeah.
And there isn't really a guy that's left. You know, I think Georgia fans obviously don't want to lose Del McGee to anybody, but there hasn't been a coordinator that's like bigger than the team, if that makes sense.
If there was, it would have been Sam Pittman.
Yeah, that's true.
Sam was a big part of what Georgia. I tell you the guy who's creeping up there, though. I tell you the guy who's really creeping up there is Todd Hartley. Todd Hartley's kind of
Todd. Yeah.
Todd's starting to slide on up there in those that recruiting hierarchy. And I tell you what, dude, that man is a dog. That man is a Georgia Bulldog. He's got that dog in him. Bunch of little. I mean, his blood cells are shaped like Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they don't get caught up and cause them to have a stroke or something, because they are not shaped like they're supposed to be. That man's all Bulldog.
I saw Todd when he was on Rick's Miami staff when I was still working in Macon, and he was checking out, I think, AJ Gray, a blast from the past, at a Washington County basketball game, and he had the Miami gear on, and it looked like it hurt him. It looked like it pained him to have to wear all that U material.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's take a look at who's already in. We kind of delineated the guys that are enrolled versus people that they're waiting to sign. Raylan Wilson, that was a really fun one, and Jake Roos and I spoke about him a lot during that recruitment. Stiff arm Michigan and stuck with Georgia. I know you've got contacts with coaches. I think that Mike McDonald a little bit. What kind of loss is Raylan Wilson from Michigan's standpoint?
That's a big one, man, because he is he's a different cat. He is, and I tell you what, CJ Allen's right there. I mean, you've already started to hear, and I hadn't really gotten into this yet, so I'm gonna give you folks here on the YouTube show and the podcast, if that's what this ultimately turns out to be. I don't know Wes's.
Yeah, we'll
Wes the Maestro's plan. He's got big plans for this stuff.
The way it goes, Jake, we get the hay in the barn, and then I just distribute it out.
There you go.
In the bales, wherever it needs to go. So yeah, it'll be a podcast too.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I give you this one before I give it to the board. I've already started to hear just a little bit of buzz out of Georgia about Raylan Wilson and about CJ Allen, and they've only been there for a few days.
What are they even doing right now? Just
they're practicing. They're practicing with the team. They work them out. They go through some stuff, and these cats move different. These cats are it's On 3 was on the CJ Allen train before anybody else was, and everybody else finally caught up and got him inside the top 100 in the country as far as the consensus goes. He's pretty close there. Both of those guys are really good players, and I think Raylan Wilson's a stud. Guys, Troy Bowles is a stud too. He's also a guy that's been announced. So they've announced 3 stud inside linebackers and 3 stud wide receiver commitments, in my opinions as well.
Yeah. When you look back on some of these guys, I remember the ripples of Justin Fields being able to show up for some of Georgia's bowl practices. What are some of the names that I think in years past you can look back and say those guys actually made their hay because they were able to come in during that bowl practice prep time?
I don't know if they were able to. I mean, I think they were able to kind of explode on the scene more so than being able to really accomplish anything. I think all of a sudden, if you can come in there and you can do that and you can get, catch the coach's eye, you can set yourself up for spring drills, because all of a sudden they go into they'll say that they try to do it, the same everybody, everywhere, every time, all that stuff, all the consistency. But if you can really catch their eye, you can't convince me that they aren't maybe looking at you a little bit differently going into spring drills and maybe thinking about getting you ready to play in a way that maybe they weren't expecting you to play right away. I can't think of any guys right off the top of my head, but I do know this. I do know that Kirby, there was a defensive back a couple years ago, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been no, it wasn't Kamari Lassiter because he didn't enroll early. There was a defensive back who came in and practiced early, and he was like, yeah, he was covering our wideouts. We knew he was going to be pretty good when he came in for bowl practices, and he did that. It may have been DJ Daniel, who was a junior college prospect, or somebody like that. But I remember him saying that about a defensive back, and I remember him saying it about some linebackers at one point too, where he was like, man, these guys are going to be good football players. They can run and they'll strike you. So that may have been that Channing Tindall, Quay Walker deal. I'm not sure. But, I definitely think if you can get on campus and practice with the team, a few times before, they leave for the bowl, anything you get helps you out. It's almost like it's almost like I used to do my first couple semesters at Georgia. I would kind of go walk and watch them, figure out how long it took me to get between my classes those first couple of days before classes started, just so I would know it's, getting that kind of stuff out of the way is really important, and the housekeeping stuff for these guys, and they can hit the ground running when spring starts.
Yeah, I almost wonder what the expectations are, if there are any. What's up, Palmer? Tom's in here now. Palmer, how's your signing day going? We've had a pretty busy morning in our text thread, getting all of our graphics out, getting some videos activated. Yes, we already have some videos ready for some guys, so just wait. I was explaining that some of this is a little bit of a formality because Georgia wants to know who's in as much as they can. They don't really, some guys, they're going to be top-notch recruits, and you're going to have to wait until they pick that hat up. But for the most part, Georgia likes to know ahead of time. Palmer Dog, as Uncle Glenn Hartley calls you.
Well, I was listening before I hopped on, and Jake, you didn't go to class.
Yeah, I did too.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I went to class that first year for sure.
Yeah, so far I've been impressed with this class that they've announced and the class that's expected to be announced. A lot of talk about Raylan Wilson, and he was one of the guys that I wrote up pre-wrote the signing story on, and man, just his stats are insane. 130 plus tackles as a junior, 125 plus tackles as a senior. Butkus Award, high school Butkus Award finalist. That says a lot. The last couple of guys that Georgia has had, they've built up this reputation. I put it on the board when I think I put it on the board when Pierce Spurlin signed, because they were talking about tight end RBU, LBU, TEU, they've got it all. And Raylan Wilson certainly going to do a lot of good for Georgia. There, I don't think correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he's officially been announced yet.
No, but he's officially there. He's already
right, but he's on campus. So, certainly, lot to like there. And, paid attention to, they posted with the Chris Peel announcement, NC continues to be good to the Dogs. Will it continue to be good to them later today?
Yeah, these Carolina Dogs.
They've got Chris Peel signed. They've got Jamal Jarrett already on campus. Kyron Jones, is that the next one? Is that the next in a line of long Carolina Dogs? Todd and Jordan.
Zamir,
yep.
Jordan Davis.
You could probably put together an all North Carolina team from out of Georgia.
Yeah, you definitely could. So let's get to something in the comments here. Andy Stowe, I guess in a mostly anticlimactic Georgia class, one decision still out there that Dogs fans have their eye on is Jordan Hall. And Jordan Hall did tweet last night, #BigBaby to the swamp. So what's your read on that, guys?
Jake Roos, Chad Simmons, Jeremy Johnson going to know more about him than I would, but haven't heard anything from our end that would let us think that Georgia's not, the team to beat there. I think maybe building some last minute drama that kind of happens from time to time. But from everything we've heard thus far, Georgia is the team to beat there. And man, what a Sports Illustrated.
How about
cover.
that throwback?
Yeah. It's funny. We ran my mom and my dad and I, we ran into him Christmas shopping in the Valdosta Mall, like literally like the year after that happened. Or like in the spring after that happened, I think it wasn't Christmas shopping. We were just there. I always associate that place with Christmas shopping because that's the only place we ever went. But we ran into him and I was like, hey, that's Marcus Stroud. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And he turned and my dad was wearing a Georgia hat and he said, see, he's wearing a Georgia hat. And my mom goes, what's wrong with wearing a Georgia hat? And my dad was like, my mom's name's Bonnie. And my dad goes, Bonnie, that man's 6'6". That's all he said. It was almost like, lower your voice, lady. Lower your voice.
Let's relax.
That guy will hammer punch you in the forehead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any insight on that either, but it is one of those things where I wonder if Georgia's in that territory now where recruits just kind of mess with other schools.
Sorry, I'm over here. Like, I know I'm right here in the face of the camera. I was trying to actually read what was being said there. I can't really see it on the screen.
We had a.
Trying to get you some of these, Jake.
No.
We had a company-wide meeting yesterday, and I was doing that on our Zoom call the other day, just like shamelessly trying to see what was on the screen in front of us. All right, so let's get back to the guys that are already up, guys that are already in, and another one. Who's the first guy that came in? We had Kelton.
Yeah.
Number one off the board.
Love that kid. Like there's nothing that fires me up more than like guard play. And I mean, great guard play. And I think Georgia's got some cats in this class. Their first two signees are capable of playing that position at an extremely high level. I mean, these are, between him and Joshua Miller, I tell you what, man, these are Sam Pittman style, guards. These are like Justin Schaefer deluxe type guys, better athletes who can, get out in space and do.
So you mean Stacey Searles is actually doing something good? Yeah,
Stacey Searles doing a good job, man. Stacey Searles is doing a fantastic job. He can't get Georgia over that Joe Moore hump. There's a Wolverine under that one. But
that might be good news for Georgia.
Yeah, I know, right?
After last year.
Yeah, I thought about tweeting out, being like, the Joe Moore Award is to Georgia, like, and then letting people caption, fill in
the blank.
Fill in the blank. See if anybody had any good analogies there. But I love those two guards, man, and those were the two guys that signed this morning. First thing, because guards, they don't need no fanfare, man.
No.
The tackles are flashy folks. But interior offensive linemen, that's where your true workhorses are. Everybody else has got a little show horse to them.
Is that why you hired me? You knew that I played guard in high school?
Listen, I was a center, so I was center and a linebacker. Wes is a diva, though. Wes is I
was a tight end. I was a tight end and defensive end, but I couldn't be a diva because they never threw the ball to the tight ends. They didn't have the Todd Monken playbook at Collins Hill High School back in the day.
And as we're talking about the guards, I mean, may as well talk about the tackle that has signed already, and the tackle that Georgia, that Jeremy Johnson is at the commitment ceremony for. Bo Hewley there, Monroe Freeling having signed already. I mean,
and Bo Hewley just announced
two cornerstones there.
Look at Bo Hewley's On3 database profile pic. That's going to strike some fear in some guys, including myself.
Yeah, that kind of hurts my collarbone just looking at it.
Yeah. Need to ice up already. Mm-hmm. Back to Kelton, though. How many guys through the years have you seen wearing that Columbus maroon helmet and the powder blue uniforms and just knowing automatically that guy's a dude? And, of course, Del McGee is his primary recruiter.
More than anything, I want to buy them new uniforms. I feel like I know they've probably gotten new ones, but they've been wearing
the helmets.
Jarvis Jones was wearing that same exact uniform, bro.
SoCro.
Yeah. SoCro, yeah. Pringles can.
That was I put on our board yesterday what was like the recruiting day moment, or the signing day moment rather, that kind of got you hooked on signing day. And Stafford was the guy that I really followed first. I know I'm kind of dating myself in the pantheon of Georgia recruits there, but like I couldn't get enough Matthew Stafford. This was like YouTube had just really started to blow up, and anytime there was a Matthew Stafford video, I was like, I can't believe this guy's actually going to leave Texas and go to Georgia. But Crowell's signing day, I was in class, and I think it's probably the first like breaking news thing I actually watched on a cell phone. I don't know how I found the link or how I got to it or what it was, but seeing him pull that bulldog puppy out, there were other people in class watching it too, and you could almost hear like this little murmur like of laughter, like that guy just pulled out a bulldog puppy, and it was kind of downhill from there.
That was the first signing day I ever covered. I was an intern helping out Roddy Nabulsi and Kip Adams over at UGA Sports, and I think they needed it. I think Steve Patterson had asked for an extra set of hands. He owned UGA Sports at the time, and he asked for an extra set of hands at the Blind Pig, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll go." So I took a PTO day from teaching high school, and went and worked, and then went and worked for free. National Signing Day, and then watched Isaiah Crowell and the Blind Pig go crazy. That was
get paid in fat Mats or dirty Elvises.
Yeah, I did get to eat for free, and I got a Texas margarita on
there. You go.
I'm hungry. I'm hungry as y'all talk about.
The part about that though was, that was I look back and I think about it. That was the old Blind Pig location. That was the old one that was
down by River Mill Apartments.
Yeah, at the corner of Oconee Street almost, and a little cut through road, and got a lot of good times, man. We used to have this big banner you'd put up behind the guys on the radio, and we would go up there and ride up there as Dave Johnson and Chris Brame, and those guys did it from the morning show. Good times, and hopefully at some point DawgsHQ in our own way can revive the whole live on location National Signing Day thing. Just didn't work out this year.
Yeah, we need to get our feet under us a little bit more, I think. But I think that you're onto something there, Jake, because of the way that we split these signing days now. We talked about this on the Georgia show that we did on Monday, how it's almost lost its luster a little bit, and the way that Georgia handles it. There isn't a lot of intrigue or drama, but that doesn't mean that we can't drum some up. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Guys, I'm going to hit the road.
Uncle Glenn was a wide receiver. He wants to let us know. All right. Peace,
well,
Jake.
I want to. You guys got to ask Uncle Glenn. We got to ask the hard-hitting questions here. Possession guy, speed guy. We need to know, Uncle Glenn. We need a 100-meter time or a 200 if you got that too. But yeah, about to head on up to UGA. Palmer's smart. He lives like 3 minutes away. I'm not smart. I live like 33 minutes away. So I'm about to head on up there for Kirby at 11:30, and we'll be back on. I'll be back with you guys later tonight.
Yep, that's right. See you, Jake. All right, Palmer, I know you got a few extra minutes with us. So
yeah, I'm the smart one, living close to campus,
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could have done that. I moved all the way to Macon when I graduated.
Ooh,
so let's see here.
Wes, this is intriguing. Not necessarily Georgia related, but reminds me of something last year. On 3 recruits tweeting out, report Deion Sanders in Colorado are in contact with
Cormani
McClain.
Poor Miami and Florida. Florida is just getting
wrecked. Florida State, Miami, just getting dogged by Deion. I mean,
I think Florida State fans I don't know if they'll forgive him for the way that the Travis Hunter deal played out. But at least taking a kid away from Miami somewhat evens the scales.
Yeah. That's obviously we've talked about how Georgia's signing day hasn't had a ton of, drama surrounding it. And that's a good thing if you're Georgia, but if we're talking about national signing day drama, it's not just Georgia signing day, national signing day drama, Cormani McClain deciding not to sign today, that would probably be the biggest story of the day so far. I mean, to me, it seems certainly, at least, 5-star plus guy.
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be the story of the day. and
I mean,
maybe
you've got the quarterback, Austin Novalot or something, flipped from Baylor to Oregon. Dan Lanning gets his quarterback after losing Dante Moore to UCLA. Austin was a kid that Georgia looked at. And there's another signee coming in from the state of North Carolina, Jamal Jarrett.
Dude, Jamal Jarrett, I think, has the biggest biceps I've ever seen from a high school recruit.
It's such an easy comparison to make, but Jordan Davis vibes.
Yeah.
I mean, state of North Carolina, big defensive lineman. I mean, it's obviously Bear put claim to number 99 during, when Jordan was leaving and Bear was coming in. So, Jamal might want to fight him for that. They might come to blows in the locker room over 99.
I don't see how you don't give him 99. That guy's earned it just by his size alone. Thanks for everyone that's tuning in, by the way. Got quite a few people tuning in today. And as we've mentioned, Georgia's signing day, not too dramatic right now. Bo Hewley is about to announce on threes. Jeremy Johnson is there. And I'm not sure what time he's going. There was a little bit of
well, he already announced.
He already announced. I guess Jeremy hasn't tweeted it yet.
Yeah, Georgia. Well, Bo, was just signing. Georgia announced his signature, but Jeremy is on hand for the celebration. So not much to be announced there, but I would imagine Jeremy is certainly going to catch up with Bo after the ceremony's done.
Georgia's receiver class is a big one, a big topic of discussion, mostly because of the transfer portal. But how about Tyler Williams also getting his signature in early today? That guy, he almost feels like, to me, when I watch him, I'm not a scout, but he seems like Lawrence Cager, but a little bit better.
Yeah, I can see that. The size of him. What really intrigues me about Tyler,
he runs like a gazelle.
Yeah. I mean, what intrigues me about him is, and if you look at the scouting report there, Charles Power notes this, but has not been a football first guy for quite that long. I mean, grew up playing basketball didn't start focusing on football. And so, as you try and correlate find the correlation between the skill set, the athleticism that it takes to play basketball and it takes to play football, well, wide receiver is probably the best spot, to figure out how to use your body, how to find positioning, stuff like that. You talk about, you want to see DBs running track because they got to run. You want to see offensive linemen wrestling because you got to fight in the trenches. Wide receiver playing basketball is not a bad combination. Quarterbacks in baseball, I mean, unless you're too concerned about, throwing too much, but that's a pairing you see a lot. But I mean, Tyler Williams, big guy, bigger and certainly an athletic guy, capable of making plays on the outside, and not the only one that Georgia has signed. They've inked 2 other wide receivers already today, 3 in total, with some speedsters.
Yazid Haynes and who else?
Anthony Evans.
Okay.
Yep, those two have gotten their signatures in.
Here's Williams just taking the ball kind of out of the Wildcat. This is YouTube only. Apologize to our podcast listeners. That's bad audio practice, but just taking it right out of the backfield.
Come on over to the YouTube.
Yep. That's a good resource for you. And look, I think with the Ra Thomas discussion coming up, his decision coming up rather, I mean, this could really be a loaded wide receiver class, Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, and I talked about with Raylan that I wrote that signing story. Tyler Williams was one that I wrote, and so dove into the wide receivers a little bit there. The fact that they have 4 guys coming in. They had 4 guys in this last class. we've talked about with the transfer portal is how they want to take 2 wide receivers. That's 10 guys that we're talking about that are going to be in there, assuming everybody's on campus and assuming transfer portal doesn't hit with that sophomore class, second year class. That's 10 guys that are going to be in their first or second year at Georgia. Now, with the transfers, they're not going to be in their first or second year playing college football necessarily, unless it's Travis Hunter. But some young talent that they've got at wide receiver. And I think that's very indicative of what they are trying to build with Todd Monken. I mean, you look at the older receivers on this team, guys that were recruited in the pre-Todd Monken era, James Coley and Jim Chaney recruits. Kyrus Jackson is one of those guys. Dominic Blaylock is one of those guys. Trying to think of guys that were on campus pre-2020. And really 2021 was the first year that you saw, Monken put his stamp on receiver recruiting. They brought in a talented class in 2020 with Marcus Rosemy and Arian Smith. I mean, we talked about that on the show the other night. That class of receivers, a couple others that I'm forgetting. I mean, Jermaine Burton was in that class, but he's gone. Ladd was in that class.
Yep.
Those guys were pre-Monken recruits, but as you looked at the post-Monken era of Georgia wide receivers, guys that stepped foot on campus last year, A.D. Mitchell, instant impact player. Jackson Meeks is somebody that we've heard a lot of good things about, hasn't necessarily translated to the field, but, somebody that had some great high school tape, as Roos pointed out to us. And then the last 2 classes, Denial Morissette, Dylan
Speak
Bell.
of the devil, and he shall appear.
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.
Jake Roos, welcome. Congratulations.
We were talking wide receiver recruiting, and your high eval on Jackson Meeks as a prospect.
Yeah, I like Jackson Meeks as a prospect. Thanks for that. Congrats, Wes. Glad to have this housing situation figured out. What a great day to pick to close on a home. On signing day.
Raylan Wilson officially.
Literally National Signing Day. You should have gone in there with like your hats and just like threw all the other ones off the table and picked a hat that had a picture of your new house on it.
I don't think I love that. I don't think anybody has probably ever been more glued to Twitter during a home closing than I was. So appreciate you guys holding it down for me in the meantime. But Jackson Meeks, I liked him coming out. You got Anthony Evans on the screen right now. Love.
We were talking about Tyler Williams a little bit earlier, and you can certainly circle back to him. I know you've done a lot of groundwork on that dude, but how about Anthony Evans? He's a guy that we haven't really talked about a ton. Georgia flipping him from Oklahoma. If there was one word I could use to describe that guy, and it's not disrespectful, is sprightly. Like, he is just a bouncy little jackrabbit. He's not the biggest guy, but he's like just shot out of a cannon.
Yeah, absolutely. Reminds me a lot on film of speed-wise of like Mecole Hardman back in the day. Kind of a smaller guy, but just able to get after it and go. And I wrote it up. I think it was in his breakdown story that his 100-meter time, I believe, I'll have to double check this, so don't hold me to it, but I believe his 100-meter time is faster than Arian Smith's was in high school. And Arian Smith ran on the Pan Am team with Matthew Bowling in the 17U at that time. So you're talking about freak fast speed here. Georgia kept after this kid, and for good reason, wanted him, throughout. We felt like they were going to land him the first go round, right? I mean, it seemed like that was going to be the case. Oklahoma came in at the 11th hour, but ultimately, he's got a lot of ties to the Peach State, and he's able to loop back around on that Georgia offer, and the Dogs are thrilled to have him. I know that.
The thing that I like about his huddle page, and I'm not going to show it here, y'all can go watch it yourselves, is probably not the best for our YouTube views, but the very top video he has pinned on his profile is just called Blocks. And I know that Todd Monken, I know that BMAC and Kirby Smart love that and appreciate that about him too. How about this wide receiver class, Jake? And let's say Georgia lands Ra Thomas at the very least. I mean, this has the makings of a very special wideout class in Georgia recruiting history.
No question about it. I think that they have a chance here to redo this wide receiver room in short order. And you like the guys you have already. I mean, it's not like you're trotting bums out there that can't play. Obviously, we've seen that they can. These guys can go. But I think that you've got a chance to add some real difference makers. Anthony Evans' speed, the overall game of Tyler Williams. Yazid Hayes is a guy who came on so strong in his senior year and is looking like a gem for them in that regard. Raymond Cottrell, a bit of a do-it-all guy as well. You add some of these talented transfer guys, you've got a real shot to really improve that room in a big way quickly, and it's already pretty strong.
We are about 30 minutes into our signing day special for the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. Y'all hit subscribe, hit like, join in the live stream comments here. I do have it set to where you have to subscribe to comment. So y'all need to hit that button if you want to have your voice heard. I do believe in the First Amendment and freedom of speech, but I also am a capitalist. Guys, that wide receiver class, and yeah, we had Dominic Lovett, Uncle Glenn Hartley asking about that guy out of Mizzou. I was visiting with some friends in St. Louis over the weekend and got some family friends out there. And the fact that guy could be leaving Missouri for a conference division rival is not sitting well with people in Mizzou.
Yeah, understandably so. I mean, I think the fact that Georgia got to see him in action and see what he did against them probably has them salivating even more. He's a guy who across the course of the season was a difference maker for the Tigers, and let's call it what it is. I mean, the talent disparity between Missouri and Georgia is significant. It may not have always reflected in the score throughout that contest earlier this year, but surrounding a guy like that with a better quarterback, a guy with more time because of the offensive lineman in front of him.
Yeah, he's their best receiver, and he only had 3 touchdown receptions this year. Something doesn't add up.
Wide receivers of equal or greater caliber, tight ends out there contributing, and as big threats, guys that you have to account for. You have a chance to really elevate his game as well. And I think that's what has to be attractive if you're a guy like Dominic Lovett looking to go in this class. You're muted, Wes.
I don't want to get too deep into the transfer portal weeds because it is signing day, and a lot of those guys will make their decisions later. I know y'all want to know about Travis Hunter. We've covered that one as well as we can, and I think Georgia does seem to be in the thick of things there. But circling back around to this position group on signing day, just want to put a pin in this. I think if you're a Georgia fan, you have a lot to be excited about with the guys that are coming in. And like you mentioned, Jake, it's not like the guys you currently have are duds. It's not like they're terrible. It's just it's a very difficult position to keep depth at. And we've talked about that a ton over the last couple of weeks as it relates to the transfer portal. You have to have bodies. You have to have guys that are ready to step up and ready to play. Look at how big of a difference it made for Bama. I know it was the excuse of the year when Jamison Williams went down and Mechie went down, but the fact that they didn't have guys that were ready to play, it's not that those guys leaving the game was the only part of that story. And that's what Saban actually admitted. He said, yeah, it sucked that they left, but the worst part was that we didn't have guys that practice hard or were talented enough or cared enough to play. And that's going to be the challenge now that you actually have the talent. I think for a while, Georgia didn't really have that talented depth. Now they got the talented depth. You just got to keep them engaged and keep them interested.
Well, I mean, and consider the fact, too, that over the course of the last 2 seasons, Georgia's played most of its season without its number 1 receiver. A.D. Mitchell, George Pickens before him. That kind of, like you said, was there another guy like that on the roster? No, clearly not. But, I mean, I think that, like you said, you keep depth not only for those injuries, but also, look, there's transfer portal for Georgia too, right? I mean, there's guys that are going to explore their options.
Yeah, it works both ways.
You've got to keep those cupboards stocked. There's no question about it.
Stained Glass Radio has been patient. Any predictions on flips? And I think we've been pretty steady on the fact that there probably won't be a lot of drama in this Georgia signing class. I know Damon Wilson is the one that you're looking at. Jordan Hall, I think we brought up before you were here, who still has his decision to make. He tweeted about going to Florida. I wouldn't be surprised if that was just a little bit of a tactic to drum up some drama, but that's just me. I don't know anything about it. When you look at flips or drama for Georgia in this recruiting cycle, do you see anybody outside of those two guys that still have decisions up in the air?
No, and I'll like I wrote last night, I'll probably live to eat those words. But right now, it feels like it's going to be somewhat quiet on that front. Now, the case is always that the door is open. If a five-star guy calls you today and says, "Hey, coach, not really feeling the staff, Georgia feels like a better fit. I love that visit I took back in the spring," whatever, you're going to listen to that, and you have to. But so far, we haven't heard a lot of drama surrounding that sort of thing. I think that it's a situation where, they're going to keep all options open, but at the same time, I think that they have to. I think that they're content with what they have and what they feel like they can finish with as well.
How much of that is a function of, not that you can always control it, but how much of that is a function of Smart and his staff basically telling these guys like, "Hey, you're either with us or you're not." And I know that's kind of a oversimplification of that sentiment, but either like, "Hey, you're here," or "We're not going to put up with a lot of drama."
No, I think that's part of it for sure. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is we can turn to other places. That's what they're telling these guys. Look, you don't want to come. Okay, well, you're the first guy we want, but if you don't want to go, we've got other guys in place. And I don't think that that's unique to Georgia. I think that that's something that top programs around the country do. And, they want to be serious. They want their guys to be as serious about them as they want their prospects to be as serious about the school as the school is about them. I think Georgia definitely pulls that card. But I think that that's something that, when you're at this level like the Bulldogs are, you're able to do that with some degree of success. Not everybody can afford to do that, but Georgia certainly can.
It is a luxury.
Roos, I'm going to ask you about this kid because I feel like he's somebody that has gotten forgotten at times, but signature just came in. Justin Rhett out of L.A. or excuse me, not L.A., Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's, now gotten a couple of kids out of Vegas. Last one, being Darnell Washington, and he turned out pretty good. What do you know about Justin?
Yeah, Rhett was an interesting case, right? Because he came in.
He was a Notre Dame commit, right?
Yeah, he was. He flipped from Notre Dame during G-Day, if I'm not mistaken, is when that happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that, if I'm not mistaken as well, I believe he was the first commit to Fran Brown when he arrived in Athens, or since he arrived in Athens. I think he was Georgia's first defensive back commit under Fran Brown. No, I like Rhett's game. And really, I think what you have to be encouraged about is Bishop Gorman's one of those programs like IMG that the talent level surrounding him is so significant that he's playing with some of the best in the nation, even at the high school level. So that's automatically going to elevate his game to some degree. Now, things got a little bit quieter. There was obviously a lot more fanfare around a guy like A.J. Harris or a guy like Janelle Aguero.
Daniel Harris.
Yeah, Daniel Harris, sure. But you're talking about higher ranked guys. Justin Rhett, a guy, got great size. Notre Dame was sad to lose him. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits into that room. But again, like Wes was talking about with the wide receivers, it's about keeping those cupboards stocked.
So, obviously you mentioned Janelle there and him being a safety. To me, that feels like the biggest need for this team. And I mentioned it, Roe put up on the board the other day as the question of the day, hey, if you could go get any guy out of the transfer portal, not named Travis Hunter, who do you think it is? Well, I mentioned a safety because I think that's a big need for Georgia. Losing Chris Smith, you've got Malachi going into his second year as a starter, but as you've looked over the last couple of years, they've lost some good ones at safety, but they've had a pretty veteran guy there next to that person, stepping up into an even more leadership type role, to bring along somebody younger. Malachi is probably going to be just as young, if not younger, than whoever plays beside him next year. So I don't know that obviously he's got playing experience and he's got incredible talent, but I don't know that you've got somebody, that is going to be a veteran guy next to him for next year. So to me, my question, as I've gone around and around here, where does Georgia go? I mean, do you see any of these cornerbacks per se playing safety, moving to safety? I mean, because right now they've got, Janelle as a safety, but then they've got Daniel Harris, AJ Harris,
Tyke Smith, as Tremaine Wilson reminds us.
Yeah, Tyke Smith is there.
So the way I look at it is this. I think that what you have on campus right now, Tyke Smith, Dan Jackson, Daniel Davids, I don't know how to say the second.
David Daniel Sisavon.
Okay. So you've got three guys who have played, right? Now, are they the highest level guys that you're going to have in terms of the roster? No, but I think you have a chance maybe to kind of ease a guy into that role. Ja'Cory Thomas was a guy that I really liked from last year's class as well, who I feel like could really turn things on with a full cycle under his belt. I think that Georgia has enough depth there that if they want to convert one of these young guys over, they have an opportunity to do that and sort of slowly work them in while they sort of are able to, handle it with another guy for the time being. I think that you have to look at AJ Harris as a potential safety. He's a guy who I think can play, nickel corner. I think he can play corner. I think he can play safety. He can handle pretty much wherever you needed him to. Which was kind of the case with Starks too, right? I mean, the need was what projected Starks into the safety role, not necessarily that he was, just considered a safety outright. I mean,
when Starks came out of Jefferson, that was like, just plug this dude in wherever you need him.
Could have been a wide receiver, could have been a linebacker, could have been,
and for a while there, I asked Kirby about it on the first day of this season, which feels forever ago at this point, but he was listed as an athlete, and I was curious, hey, he's listed as an athlete, the only guy on this team that's listed as an athlete. Are you considering using him on both sides of the ball?
And how'd that go for you?
I got a one-word answer that was 2 letters.
Yeah,
no.
Right.
Kirby doesn't really play around with that.
Transfer portal wise, Smoke Bowie, right? Obviously being mentioned a lot. Could he potentially play back there as well? Yeah, I think that's a possibility. And that gives you a guy who's been in a college system for a year as well. So you've got an opportunity there. I think the depth is such that you figure it out, man. I mean, it's going to be a situation where listen, all of these guys are talented guys. You're talking about a room full of 4-star guys in the defensive back room.
Jake, and we were talking about how it was almost like this hot button conversation. Like anytime Georgia signed a cornerback, the hallmark of a cornerback that Kirby wanted to sign was tall. Tyson Campbell's like that first prototypical, like at least 5'11", maybe 6'1", 6'2". There have been exceptions to that, but Smoke Bowie is not that guy. I mean, he's good, but I think it kind of speaks to how talented he is that Georgia is after him and was after him as hot as they were.
I agree completely. Smoke, one of those guys that, the talent was always there. I think that he was a guy that, could have done it out of high school. And yeah, like you said, anything possible for him. They have turned to go with the longer guys. Justin Rhett, you got him pulled up 6 foot, 183. Daniel Harris, 6'2".
I'm about to get buoy up. Just letting
AJ
this
Harris is
load.
what, like 6 foot, I would say, probably 5'11", something like that. So yeah, they have trended that way. Certainly, I think that's pretty killer. Jason Ray, what's up out there in Elbert County? Rock and roll.
So if my count is correct here, and keep in mind I'm a journalism major, not a math major. I've got.
You didn't take stats? You didn't take a stat class?
I actually didn't because I got a 5 on the AP exam.
I took college algebra.
Shut
I made 1D. I made 1D in college.
I did not take a single math class at Georgia because I tested out of them in high school.
Shout out
That's a
to
different story.
Djibouti in the comments
Yeah.
here.
But
I think Jeremy just wanted us to say Djibouti.
As I was saying, if my count is correct, Georgia's got 6 commits that have yet to sign. Gabe Harris, who's already on campus, and then 5 guys that are not on campus yet: Sam Mpemba, Raymond Cottrell, Roderick Robinson, Jamal Merriweather, and Peyton Woodring.
That sounds right. I'm feeling good about that Gabe Harris signature getting on the paper.
Yeah. That would be awkward. Where were we talking on the board this morning? Or I can't remember if it was you, Jake, or if it was Jake Rowe that mentioned that there's kind of like a quirk in the way the signing process works now. It's not necessarily like the fax machine, like they use their smartphone. It's really inside baseball stuff, but maybe that's kind of the case with some of these guys. I imagine if their signature isn't in yet, it's not necessarily like worry about this guy because his signature is not in.
No, I don't think that's the case at all. And I think, too, that it's the case with a lot of these guys that, some of them want to have the big moment. Some of them want to have a ceremony. So maybe you're waiting on that kind of thing.
Not to mention that it's before 8 a.m. in Roderick Robinson's world.
Yes, exactly. I don't blame him, man. I wasn't happy to be up at 6:45 this morning. So I get it. I think that I don't see any concerns with those guys. And like you said, I think that it'll all get done in short order.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I've got to head out to Kirby press conference. We'll talk to him. We talked to 2 players last night about the Peach Bowl. We'll talk to 2 more players today about the Peach Bowl. Obviously, Peach Bowl coverage is on the back burner, which feels crazy to say, but it's on the back burner today.
You should go in there and just ask him just ask him Peach Bowl questions only. Just throw him for a loop, keep him on his toes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hit the road and I'll holler at y'all later.
Thanks, Palmer. Yep, we'll see you later tonight.
See you, buddy.
Jake, I don't know how long I got you on here for. I think we're going to try to get Jeremy Johnson on here, and I think Chad Simmons was going to try to call me. I might have missed the call.
Man, good luck. I can't. I feel for Chad more than anybody on earth today, man. He's earning. He earns his money every single day, but no day more than signing day.
Chad is getting pulled in every direction, and I had to ask. Jeremy said he was not just trying to get us to say Djibouti. He's been deployed there since July. So, Jeremy, we appreciate that, brother. Thanks for everyone that's in the comments. Marie, just me. I think Marie like crashed our live stream there for a second. Just hopped in like Neo in the Matrix and just
no doubt.
And just rocked our whole stream. So Jake, let's see. What's the story of this class for you? Whether it's a player, whether it's what Georgia is doing to address a need. I know that's kind of a 10,000-foot question, but without this signing day drama that I think we've come accustomed to, there's no Roquan Smith, knock on wood, situation coming up. What do you think is really jumping off the page for you about what the Dogs are doing in 23?
I think the wide receiver thing is really prevalent, and really just pass catchers in general, I would say. Right?
Yeah, we haven't talked tight ends yet.
Yeah, because we got to lump the tight ends in with that. You got Pierce Spurlin, you got Lawson Lucky already, and you feel like Georgia's in a good spot for Deuce Robinson as he pushes things into February. You're talking about really kind of reworking the face of the offense in terms of the passing game in this class. And for me, that's kind of the standout thing. I think, too, the other thing is Georgia really closing on major needs. you had to have Samuel and Pimba. It's a few hours here before Damon Wilson's commitment, but you feel good about that one going in.
Yeah, Damon Wilson. We're going from 10 a.m. Eastern to noon. So Damon Wilson will not have made his decision by the time we go off the air here on this stream, but we will be back tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, like we always are on Wednesday, once the dust has settled for the most part, to recap everything that happened. So I think every indication we're getting is that Damon Wilson loves the Dogs.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm projecting Georgia there. I have been for some time, and I think that they are in a great spot. I mean, listen, anything can happen. That's why I keep caging this. But the pass catchers as a whole, to me, like I said, that's the main storyline about this class. It's interesting to see Kirby Smart and company focus on that. You think of them as so defensively minded, and the meat of the class, I guess the high-ranked meat of the class, is defensive, but wide receiver is still a key one in there, and tight end as well. Keeping those cupboards stocked. Listen, a guy like Pierce Spurlin, a guy like Lawson Lucky, Deuce Robinson, should he end up in this class, those guys can split out and play wide. I mean, they don't have to be inline blockers. It's not, and that's not the game Georgia's playing anymore. They can, they absolutely have those capabilities, but they're also possibly doing more.
This might be as Palmer called it the other day, a galaxy brain question here. But is the fact that Georgia is sticking with that DNA and kind of overhauling the offense, and coaches got to make their decisions, they got to do them, is that an indication to you of the job security that Todd Monken feels like he has at Georgia? Or do you feel like he'll still consider other opportunities if they come up?
It's possible, right? I mean, that's just the way that this thing works now. I mean, everybody's going to listen. There's no question about that. So I think that, they've got you feel good about it. I mean, there's no reason not to. We haven't heard any rumors to that end. And the way that they built this class seems to suggest some solidity. And I think that he has a chance to get out there and rebuild, an offense that fits exactly what he wants to do. And, let's call it what it is too. Todd Monken's an older guy. He's not ancient by any stretch of the imagination, but how much more moving around does he want to do? How many more big life changes does he want to make? If he's got the itch to scratch to get back into the NFL or get a head coaching job, I can understand that. But you got to think Georgia, after the season they've had last year and then the season again this year, he's probably due up for another bump in pay soon.
Yeah, I know that's a very theoretical question to ask. You can't predict anything, but it does make things a lot easier for you to recruit when you know what kind of scheme or system you want to run and you know what you want your offense to look like. Doesn't mean guys can't leave and can't change their minds. And then, you get an extreme example is obviously Georgia Tech with Paul Johnson running the triple option. You recruit for years based on what that's going to look like. Then the next guy comes in and you kind of throwing your hands up. What do I do with all these guys? But the fact that Georgia is bringing so many of these pass catchers in, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it makes me believe that Georgia knows what it wants its identity to be, I guess, with or without Todd Monken.
Yeah, no. And I think that, it's, I'll tell you this, if Todd Monken decides to move on, like I said, we haven't heard anything to suggest that he will, but let's say he decides to, I think that whoever comes in next will be quite happy with whatever Georgia's put in.
The cupboard
place.
Will not be empty.
No question about it, man. Yeah, they're going to be pretty well stocked up in terms of this class. So I think that it's a good situation for Georgia, regardless of what happens. And right now, obviously, everybody hoping to keep Todd Monken on board, and I understand that completely.
How about the impact that Todd Monken's offense has on college football right now? I mean, you look at what he's done with Brock, what he's done with Darnell, that Las Vegas connection. Got a funny story about Darnell. I'm going to sidebar here really quickly. I did a feature story on the Mayflower when I was working more at Outsider, which is like our sister company for On3. And I met the owner up there. Great dude. If y'all are local and you've eaten at the Mayflower, you know how good of a breakfast it is. But he told me that his breakfasts and his menu, every time that Darnell would come into Athens, the Mayflower is basically what got him to love Georgia. So if you eat breakfast there, if you go by, if you see it downtown, you see the owners, and you love Darnell Washington, you know who to thank.
Dap him up.
Because that guy consumed a lot of Mayflower calories when he was visiting Georgia. Back to my original point, though. You see the emphasis I've seen anyway on tight ends in the transfer portal and in recruiting, of course. I mean, there's going to be talented tight ends, but I'm almost seeing reading some of the tea leaves that, maybe some people are going to try to duplicate what Georgia's done. And good luck doing that, because I feel like Brock is a very special talent, as is Darnell. But I think we could see a little bit of a mini tight end offensive revolution here in the years ahead.
I agree with you. I think that's the way the NFL game's been trending for some time. Even going back to guys like Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates, and those guys seemed like anomalies. Shannon Sharp, I mean, those were freak guys just playing that position, playing the hell out of it.
Before he was yelling on TV for a living, yes.
Right, exactly. And then, now it's but you've started to see it with guys like Darren Waller, right? And Travis Kelce or George Kittle. The tight end position has gained a lot of respect over the years and a lot of intensity and a lot more use, I would say, especially in the passing game. I think Georgia just a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of stocking the cupboards up with guys like that. And it's not easy to find guys like that, which is the other part of the equation. But they've done a fantastic job doing it, and all credit due to Todd Hartley.
Yeah. No, we've given Todd Hartley a ton of love on the show, but specifically today as well. When Brock was coming out as a prospect, did you have any idea how quickly he was going to be able to come on the scene and do what he's done?
No, I'm not going to lie to you. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that anybody did, primarily because he missed his entire senior season. California didn't play football. And so I don't know that anybody had a good feel on exactly how all of those kids would kind of come back and return to the game. I mean, they were training along the way. Certainly they were keeping themselves ready, but the ability to come in and do what he did, I don't know that anybody really could have projected that. You thought he was a great player. I mean, the film suggested that he was, the camp suggested that he was, but for him to do what he's done, I don't know that you can project anybody really.
The one person that I heard kind of call the shot, but not totally, was David Pollock. He was on with 680 talking about the Clemson game because Georgia had some injuries at the position going into the game. I think Darnell was hurt, and people were like, well, who's going to step up at tight end? Darnell was supposed to be the guy, so on and so forth. And Pollock was like, well, just watch out for this Bowers kid. And I kind of put a pin in that. I was like, okay, I guess he could contribute. Little did I know. I mean, every time that guy touches the ball, it's insane. It doesn't even feel right that he's going to have another year of eligibility in college. Let's get on the defense, the edge rusher needs. And, I do a weekly column called Bloody Tuesday. It kind of takes the hot takes of the internet, and I just run them through a tough practice of my own, because Bloody Tuesday is what Georgia calls its toughest practices of the week. I've seen a lot of Ohio State fans, as it is related to Damon Wilson. I don't want to say it's complaining, and maybe it's true, but the narrative is that Ohio State's NIL is not as dedicated as Georgia's. And I put in my Bloody Tuesday, I don't know if it's necessarily that simple. I'm sure NIL is a factor for a guy of this, this caliber. But if you're Damon Wilson, do you not see a massive opportunity at the edge rush position ahead of you, just the way it's situated right now for Georgia and what it could look like in 2023? It looks like he could play right away.
It's screaming at you. I don't know how. I mean, it's hard to there's probably not a position that Georgia needed a player at more than edge in this class. I mean, you can make the arguments for any of them, of course, but the edge room is beyond Nolan Smith and Robert Beal, who were two very talented guys who have a lot of snaps under their belt. Beyond those two guys, Chaz Chambliss, good player, Marvin Jones, young, untested, Darius Smith coming along, but taking some time. And where does he end up ultimately? Is he a star? Does he play the edge rusher? Regardless of the fact, there's just not a lot of clear-cut answers. And so if you're a kid like Damon Wilson, who I think is ready from the jump, I mean, physically, a power lifter in high school, 6'4", 235. He's not coming in as one of these guys that you got to get in there and, pump him full of mayonnaise to put some meat on his bones. I mean,
that was my favorite station at the dining hall, by the way. It was the mayonnaise machine.
He's got the size that I think translates over. I think that he has a first step that translates over. If he's as ready as people think that they are, or think that he can be, then yeah, Georgia, I think, screams opportunity. No question in my mind.
Yeah, the NIL thing is what it is. I don't know. It seems like sour grapes a little bit. Justify however you need to justify that Damon Wilson isn't going to your school. I think rationally it's maybe not that complicated. Maybe the guy just sees a really good defense and sees Kirby Smart and what he's done with edge rushers in the past. There he is right here. Actually,
look at that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, if
you're listening on the podcast, 106, an hour 6 into the YouTube, hit the link and watch the huddle highlight that we just played.
Just turn on Damon Wilson film, and it's just, oh God, I feel for the kids he's going up against. I love it personally to watch it, but I also sympathize with those kids because that's a grown man playing children. And there's no other way really to spell it. And, if Georgia's able to pull that one out as we expect that they will, God, what a get it'll be. Because the other thing about it is, too, what makes Damon Wilson, I think, so important to this class is Samuel Mpimba is a bit of a project, at least in my mind, because he split time in his high school career. He spent a lot of time playing the offensive side of the ball, didn't start playing football until he was in 7th grade. Damon Wilson, a guy who has largely focused on the defensive side of the ball and has had a great deal of success there, just a lot more, I think, ready-made. Now, Mpimba can get there, and the upside's massive. I'm not saying the kid's not a good player. He's a 5-star guy. But Damon Wilson, I think, a little bit more ready-made.
I mean, just look at some of the guys that have come in recent signing classes that have had freakish film that aren't contributors yet. Marvin Jones, Jalen Walker. I mean, those are dudes that are kind of waiting in the wings. And I remember watching a guy named Roquan Smith grow up on the punt team as a freshman. It takes a little bit of time, but some guys are just ready to go. And Malachi Stark's an example of that, a different position, obviously, but it's special when they can do it. That kind of leads me to this question, Jake. Like, do you feel like there are certain positions where you're able to move in space a little bit more, maybe, where some of these guys just are more ready for the college game than they were in years past? And is it too simple to say that? And what's lended itself to that? Is it the 7-on-7 camps? Is it nutrition programs? Like, what are coaches saying when they see guys come out of high school that are ready to play as freshmen, like a Malachi Starks or maybe like a Damon Wilson?
No, I think it's all of that, really, Wes. I think that it's you've got kids now who are starting to get their nutrition under control in 9th grade. They're hitting the weight room twice a day, getting in 2 workouts. They're playing on the 7-on-7 teams. I mean, but that doesn't necessarily always have to be the case. Some guys just got it, man. Some guys can just go. I mean, and so it works both ways. But for these physically developed guys, the guys that are ready from the jump, you look at a lot at the IMG kids. We talked about Bishop Gorman. I mean, those are essentially minor league college teams. They have strength and conditioning staffs. They have these guys on meal plans. They're training against some of the best in the nation. And so, I think that there are certain positions that translates to. I think we saw it with Mykel Williams this year, that if you can rush the passer, if you can get out there and get after that, and you have that kind of explosiveness and that kind of awareness, there's a role for you as a freshman in Georgia's defense, and any defense, to be honest with you. Malachi Starks, you're talking about a guy really who you can just turn loose, and he can do, you tell him play see ball, get ball, ultimately. And he's able to go out there and do it. And I think that speaks to his high level of athleticism. I think that speaks so well of the Jefferson program, which is one of the great programs in the state of Georgia. But, guys, I wrote this. I forget who it was about, but I said the see ball, get ball guys, they make it look so easy, and that's what's so frightening. Like that, those are the guys that you really have to be worried about. When it looks like it's translating over on film, they're not out there plodding around. They're not out there catching up to guys. It's a situation where they just understand the game in a different way. They see it different from the kids that are around them. And I think that's what elevates those guys and makes them so dangerous at the next level already.
So I want to show and kind of highlight something. And obviously, if Damon Wilson chooses Georgia, this will change. But when you look at the 5-star column of Georgia's recruitment, when you look at the on-3 evaluations, okay, you see a 0 there. And I think that a lot of
no, that's not the consensus. That's not the consensus ranking. We have to cage that.
Right.
That's the consensus team ranking. But in terms of consensus rankings, they do already have Samuel Mpemba, who is a 5-star consensus.
Right. Okay. What did I just click? I just clicked the wrong thing. Anyway,
No. You're good. You.
The point I'm making though is that Georgia doesn't really bolster its classes anymore, or really hang on to a guy like Malcolm Mitchell coming in. You know, when guys like that would sign, it was got to get them, got to have them, need them, can't miss out on them. Nowadays, it's kind of like the ceiling is maybe not as high, but the floor is a hell of a lot higher. And I think, you know, from my perspective, it has everything to do with just getting good guys, obviously. And I'm not saying that our evaluations are wrong. I want to make sure that everyone that works for On3 hears me say that. But I want to emphasize how much Kirby's staff evaluates these guys that maybe are a little bit more diamonds in the rough, like Ladd McConkey, like Jordan Davis. And I think there's somewhat of a function of that too for people that look at Georgia's signing class and say, oh, that's cool, they're ranked high, but they don't have any 5 stars.
Yeah, and it's not an end-all, be-all. And I've told people this for a long time. This was especially true during the COVID season and all the recruiting shutdowns that happened around that. Georgia trusts its evaluations. They like to get these guys on campus. They like to see them in person. Every school does, but I think Georgia feels really confident in their ability to evaluate. So they're not necessarily out there chasing 5 stars at the expense of landing an exceptional 4-star guy. And, you know, to ask Kirby, he'd say, I don't give a damn about stars to begin with. So it doesn't matter. But ultimately, I mean, they seem to sure end up with a lot of highly ranked guys if they're not. I don't know if that's a function of us or them. We'll leave that to be decided. But, you know, I think that it is the situation where they trust their evaluations. They have a chance to go out and reel these guys in. And like I said, at the expense of why give up on an exceptional player for a roll the dice chance of a maybe great player? If you feel like they're somewhat comparable, I think you take bird in the hand, right? And if you feel like you have a bird in the hand, I think that they're content to do that. 5 stars are wonderful. There weren't just a ton built in for Georgia in this cycle. Caleb Downs in state. I think he was the only in-state 5-star, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, it wasn't like they just swung and missed on a ton of guys out there.
Right.
In the higher rank class, or in the higher echelon, I guess you could say.
Let me change gears really quick. And I think we were talking about this when you hopped on. But with Deion Sanders back-to-back years now, potentially, delaying a commitment, a signing now of Cormani McClain. Last year it was Travis Hunter, of course. What kind of impact is this guy having? Can you, from a guy that's covered this for years now, put it in perspective about how Coach Prime is, in a way, stirring this drink single-handedly?
I'm not surprised by it. I thought kids would naturally gravitate toward him. I thought that kids would want to play under him. And then he's able to go to a place like Jackson State and prove that he could deliver on all of the things that he said he could do. And suddenly that's what I think is compelling. I think that that's got to be what's really intriguing to a lot of guys is not only is this guy talking the game, he's delivering on it. And he's taken a place like Jackson State to places it's never been. He's advising guys like they've never been. He's giving a platform to players that they've never had. And I think that it makes a lot of sense, to be honest with you. There's nobody, there is not a Division I head coach. And I feel firm in this. And I know Deion Sanders just arrived in the Division I rank in terms of FBS, but there's not a guy who understands marketing yourself more than Deion Sanders. And I would challenge anybody to fight me on that. I think that it's been the entirety of his career is built around that. And in a world such as NIL, in a world where it's all about build the brand, nobody understands how to build your personal brand like Deion Sanders. That's something that connects with these kids. And I think that it makes all the sense in the world, like I said, if he's able to do that.
Have you ever seen a coach, like a coaching change, immediately turn the tide on? And I don't want to say that he's immediately turning the tide on Colorado's class. I mean, let me see where Colorado's recruiting class ranks. But with the transfer portal, obviously, in NIL a factor, it does seem like the perfect storm for him to maybe have a little bit more momentum than any other coach has ever had.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, it's opened doors that were not previously there. You see what was come in.
I'm scrolling. Colorado's not in the top 50.
It was come in, get your classes in, get your, there you go, 55. A 4-star Dylan Edwards, though. Nice pickup for them, for sure. But you're able to flip guys over and, or you're able to get guys in and say, look, it's not just about what you do on the field anymore. That's important. And that's what people are going to know you for. And that's where you're going to earn your money. But you have to be able to be smart with your money. You have to be able to market yourself. You have to be able to build your foundations. You have to be able to do community service. That's a new thing, quite frankly, in the world of college football. And like I said, Deion Sanders has a jump on the marketing aspect of this in a way that almost no one does.
What's going on with Florida right now, Jake?
They're falling apart. What do you want me to say? I mean, it's not great. It's I think more people, honestly, over in the comments section have been talking about Florida.
Yeah, I needed to address it because I'm pandering to the comments section.
No, they've got some good players and some guys Georgia wanted. Kelby Collins was a guy Georgia would absolutely love to have had. Roderick Kearney for sure. Cameron James, I think, as well. They could have probably pushed for TJ Searcy if they wanted him. Didn't feel like they did that too much. Scroll down there a little bit more for me, Wes. Will Norman, I didn't hear too much about. Sharif Denson is a good player. I think that he was a guy that they probably took a run at early on, especially. Trayon Webb was a former Georgia commit at one time, but he changed several times. Bryce Thornton is a Georgia legacy.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about Justice Haynes.
Yeah, Bryce Thornton's a Georgia legacy for sure. So, I mean, it seems like right now it's happening late in the cycle that Florida's hitting some bumps in the road. I shouldn't say they're falling apart. They have a good class. Jakeem Jackson was a kid they liked.
Caleb Banks looks like he has a mortgage and a family.
Caleb Banks looks like he could I would call Caleb Banks sir if I ran into him.
Yeah, pardon me, sir.
But yeah, no, listen, I shouldn't say they're falling apart. That's not true. That's not fair. But they are having some drama here late in the cycle. And I think that probably a lot more than they'd like to, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Florida fan, you want to be able to look at what Georgia did and say, well, Kirby had a tough first year. If Kirby's the standard anyway in the conference. Kirby had a tough first year, but Kirby didn't lose his bowl game that way. And Kirby didn't really have a recruiting class that is as turbulent as this. Now, I know all the comparisons aren't equal because of everything we've already hit on with NIL and the transfer portal. But I do understand why Georgia fans are entertained, to say the least, by some of these speed bumps Florida's hitting.
No doubt. I get it. Wes, I got to kick off of here. I got a radio spot to hit.
Yep. Best of luck.
Hold it down for me. Check us out at DawgsHQ.
Yeah. Sorry, just had. Yep. There goes Jake. I think Jeremy Johnson from On Three is about to hop on, so I wanted to clear the runway for him. But I appreciate everyone that's been in here today. 500 of y'all viewing and listening. This will be a podcast later if you missed some of it, and it will be a replay on our YouTube channel too if you want to hop around to some of the stuff that we talked about early on if you may have missed it. John Sanford says they're going to be drinking Bailey's out of a boot in the swamp very soon. And I don't know. I don't necessarily know that Florida needs to have a bad recruiting class for that to happen. I think that just happens. I think that's a normal occurrence. Andy Stowe is a legacy commenter. He's always in here watching us talk about Georgia on the Georgia Show, whether it's after a game day, immediately after the game ends. We're also live every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern and every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, the holidays are shaking our schedule up a little bit. Some of our live appearances, we did one on Monday instead of Sunday, just for example. But we're going live a couple times a week, and we've got some breakdowns as well on a lot of Georgia's recruits after y'all hop out of here. We're going to go for about another 30 minutes. I know there are some decisions or some official signings yet to come in for Georgia, as Palmer mentioned earlier. Let's see. Let's just run through. Let's do a re-rack here. Gabe Harris is enrolled. A.J. Harris is signed. Jonel Aguero is signed. Raylan Wilson, signed. Monroe Freeling, signed. And check out Monroe's NIL estimated value here. $148,000. On Three does a NIL tabulator, calculator that compares and contrasts, based on what players do, based on their social media impact, based on, their recruiting ranks. And once they make it to college, it's based on their statistics and their impact on the team. But I found that interesting for a high school prospect offensive lineman. Good for Monroe. Hope he's able to tap into some of that. Troy Bowles, signed. Tyler Williams, signed. CJ Allen, signed. Bo Hewley, he signed. Pierce Sperlin, signed. Lawson Lucky, another tight end that we were mentioning earlier, he signed. Daniel Harris flipped from Penn State, if you want to call it that. He was a Georgia guy, then he was a Penn State guy, then he was just a guy, and now he's a Georgia guy again. Jamal Jarrett. Let's look at this dude. North Carolina dog, 6'5", 380. And he is the consensus 4th overall prospect out of North Carolina. Chose Georgia over the Heels, the Wolfpack, Texas A&M, and Auburn. But check out this dude's biceps. Let me see if I can pull up his Instagram. I mean, this guy is he's massive. And yes, you want to look at him and say he's Jordan Davis 2.0. Maybe he's going to carve his own legacy. But I think Georgia's strength staff and conditioning staff is going to have a little work to do, maybe to make sure that he stays at the weight they want him to stay at. That was kind of the concern and the struggle with Jordan Davis as well. But this guy's been a dog for a while. What else do we have? Yeah, Juice ATL. That's all I got to say. But Georgia obviously fortifying its D-line. We mentioned the edge rusher opportunities for Mpemba, for Damon Wilson. Georgia's got a format. They've got a formula. And a lot of it has to do with just getting these dogs up front, the front seven, and turning them loose, getting them strong, getting their speed up. I know it's hard to coach speed, but believe it or not, they can actually make some of these guys a little faster once they measure them and keep track of what they're doing at practice. Who else is signed already? Chris Peel, cornerback out of North Carolina, another North Carolina dog, signed. Kelton Smith, Columbus, Georgia's own, signed. I'm going to go back through and look at the reach, the breadth of this Georgia signing class. I know that you didn't get Caleb Downs. I know that you didn't get Justice Haynes. But when you look at out-of-state guys that you've brought in, it reminds me of playing the dynasty mode in NCAA football. And once you get to a certain status as a coach, you can have your pick of players from across the country. And that is there's no science in what I said, Murray. Track coaches will be surprised to hear that you can coach speed. Maybe they're missing out. But anyways, Georgia's got its pick of who it wants from across these 50 states. We mentioned Anthony Evans, that wide receiver out of Texas, signed. Justin Rhett, signed. Yazid Haynes out of Pennsylvania. That's another little pipeline that Georgia's opened up with Mark Webb and DeAndre Swift. He signed. Joshua Miller, another offensive lineman, is signed. So who's Georgia still waiting on? Mpimba, the edge rusher we mentioned out of IMG, originally from St. Louis, Missouri. Raymond Cottrell, another wide receiver. Georgia waiting on him. Roderick Robinson, I believe he was Mr. Football in the state of California. Running back, Georgia flipped from UCLA. Don't quote me on that Mr. Football thing, but he was really good. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll go back and check. Jamal Merriweather, tackle out of Brunswick. Georgia just picked him up. He's one that I want to ask Jake about a little bit later. You know, you look at him, a 3-star consensus. Maybe he's a project. Originally committed or looking to UCF. So, you know, human nature is going to tell you, why is this guy in Georgia's class? Well, all I'd say to that is look at some of these guys coming out of the transfer portal, and I think he's the perfect candidate of a player that I mentioned earlier that maybe Georgia evaluated to an extent that other programs didn't evaluate. 3-star dude that is in your class and he commits to Georgia. He's a local guy. But, you know, you look at him and say, why did Georgia want him? Well, he's 6'6", 285. So you got a good floor there. Consensus, 76 best player out of the state. Obviously, Georgia's loaded. But that's an interesting one. And I'm excited to see what his career looks like, to see if that's a guy that Georgia just evaluated better, or if they took him because they're the smartest people in the room. I don't know. And then Peyton Woodring, kicker out of Louisiana. Haven't gotten his paperwork yet as far as we know. So there's some guys that Georgia's still waiting on. But I know y'all want to know about Damon Wilson. You want to know about Jordan Hall. I'll tell you, everything that Jake Roos has told me is that he feels that both of those guys will be in the class. I don't think their announcements will be made by the time that I'm off. Pardon my congestion, too. I know it's helping my baritone voice here, but I also sound like I have a clothespin on my nose. So sorry for the sound quality there. But my heart is in this thing. Don't you ever doubt it for a second. Signing day is not a day to miss. Appreciate y'all in the comments, though. Keeping it entertaining. I know I'm not mentioning all of them, but I do laugh at and appreciate all of them. All right, Jeremy Johnson joining us now, fresh off of the signing ceremony of Bo Hughley. Jeremy, be careful, man. Appreciate you joining us here on DawgsHQ on our signing day special. Tell me what the atmosphere was like for Bo Hughley. I know there was a little bit of smoke there late that Auburn could try to come in. How badly does this guy want to be a Dawg?
Yeah, it sounds like he ultimately chose to stick with Georgia. Auburn has been there for a long time. Program he's taken a look at multiple times. I really just feel like it was, him going to be, with his guys over at Langston Hughes. He has a teammate committed there. Terrence Love, Jelani Thurman considered them as well. But I think that was most of that. And he obviously, Colorado kind of showed up here late, and he went and took a visit out there, and they were on the table today, and they were a team that, made a run with Deion Sanders, and, ultimately Georgia just won out. I mean, LSU, Nebraska also made runs. But, there was definitely some smoke there, and I definitely think he seriously, went and checked all those boxes and considered all of those programs.
I spoke with Jake Roos about this a few minutes ago, but from your national perspective of what Coach Prime is doing, and I know that the transfer portal is allowing him to have a little bit more leverage than I think traditionally a coach in that situation would have had. I mean, obviously, Coach Prime is going to be a destination coach for a lot of players, but what's your take when you look at Cormani McClain delaying his signing today and Coach Prime potentially having an impact in that? Have you ever seen anything to the level, the caliber of how Deion Sanders is impacting the recruiting game right now?
No, I don't think we've seen anything like it in football. I think it's almost like the atmosphere of college basketball where John Calipari shows up at Kentucky and all of a sudden there's 4 or 5 five-star guys that all join one team and go play together. I think that's kind of the similar. I think that's a better way of thinking of it versus thinking of it as a football, just only type situation, type atmosphere. It's very interesting if you're a defensive back and you're one of the elite guys. I mean, you have to at least listen to Deion Sanders being one of the best, to ever play the position. Like, he's going to speak your language. He's going to have things that, off the field that, that he can provide you, just as far as knowledge that a lot of these coaches can't because they've never been through it. Having a little trouble hearing you.
What is the story for you? The high profile maybe headline that you're circling for what Kirby Smart's staff is doing with this 2023 signing class?
I'm sorry. I couldn't hear your question. Say it again.
I'll try it one more time. This is going to be one for the highlight reel. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
What is the storyline, whether it's a player, a position group, the way that Georgia is addressing a position of need? What's the headline for you of this 2023 signing class and the way that Kirby Smart's staff is approaching it by the time this thing's all said and done?
Yeah, I think that linebacker group is really, going to be one that we're going to look back and think about, how well they did with this class. Raylan Wilson, the guy that just officially signed a little while ago. He's going to be a guy that he can do a lot of things playing that linebacker position. He's fast, he's physical, he plays really aggressively. I think Georgia fans are going to really enjoy watching him. Also, I think the edge position as well with Samuel Mpemba. Gabriel Harris is already committed. Later on today, we'll have a decision from Damon Wilson, a 5-star. They need impact guys at all of those positions, and I think Georgia has won a lot of really big football games because they were better than the other team in those spots. When you think back to Roquan Smith, N'Kobe Dean, just last year, this group that they're playing with this year, Smile Munden and Jamon Dumas Johnson are all good football players that help lead that program. And I think that this group coming will be a big part of what Georgia does, moving forward.
Last thing for you, Jeremy, as we look at what this signing class can be for Georgia, what do you think the Dogs' biggest needs, or do you think the Dogs' biggest accomplishments still could be in the transfer portal?
I think the running back position, I feel like they Obviously, they missed on Justice Haynes, who ended up going to Alabama. I feel like they got Roderick Robinson. That was a big pickup. He's a good football player. They're trying to find a second guy. Whether that comes here today or tomorrow or sometime over the next couple months in the transfer portal. That will be a spot that I think they're gonna.
I think we just lost Jeremy. I'm going to go ahead and part ways with my man JJ. Appreciate it. Appreciate his insight and appreciate y'all sticking with us. Kirby Smart is now speaking and addressing the media. I know we'll have his full press conference up as soon as that's done. As some of these guys commit, we're going to have some select video recaps. Marie did not run Jeremy off. Let's bring him back in. All right. You got cut off talking about Georgia's running back needs and the transfer portal. But when you look at this Travis Hunter sweepstakes, I got to get your take on it. We've talked about it a ton over the last couple days. What's he looking at? What's he looking for? Is it as simple as he's going to Colorado, or do you think he really has some proverbial hats on the table here to make a decision for?
Yeah, I definitely think it's more complex than just following Deion Sanders to Colorado. I think he kind of learned a little bit about himself at Jackson State, and development will be a big deal for him. I know he wants to play in the NFL. Georgia, if you're looking at playing defensive back in the NFL, Georgia's a place that you can go and play. You can go and get developed, and obviously they could even use him on the offensive side of the football because they really need some receivers over there as well. So, it's an intriguing thing for him to have to consider. It's not just as simple as let me go to Colorado, because there's no guarantee that he's got his year with Deion under his belt. So he may be looking for.
Jeremy, let me get your take on one more guy before you hop off here, if you can still hear me. What did you make of the commitment and the take of Jamal Merriweather? He seems to me like one of these project guys that maybe Georgia evaluated in a way that some other programs didn't, or maybe Georgia's just taking a chance on someone and they're trying to be the smartest people in the room. What did you think about that commitment? I think Georgia's still waiting on his letter of intent to come in as we talk here, but what was your take on that?
Yeah, I think Georgia's really excelled in this type of area over the last few years. They've had guys turn in the way. Latin Conk, Stetson Bennett was.
All right. Jeremy's driving through a rough spot. I do appreciate his service with us today. And I think he just proved me right. I heard him say Ladd McConkey, and I talked about Ladd McConkey. One of those guys. So am I a recruiting expert? No. But I think I've picked up enough along the way to be dangerous. So we're going to go for a few more minutes here. I'll just take any questions y'all have. I will caveat this. I am not a recruiting expert, but I'll do my best. And maybe we can just talk dogs. Maybe we can just talk Georgia, Ohio State, and talk about whatever. But yeah, y'all can fire away with me for the next few minutes before I hop off. I really do appreciate Marie stirring the pot here. The most quiet 400-person chat she's ever been in. Marie, I assume you are a female because your name is Marie, but maybe you're a guy. I don't know. I'm just going to keep calling you she until you correct me. But yeah, I think it's been a good day for Georgia. A destination coach is what I call Deion Sanders. I didn't stutter. I think in the NIL era, the transfer portal era, you can have destination coaches. Now, maybe Deion Sanders stays at Colorado and turns it into a powerhouse, and he's there for 15 years. Is anyone going to be surprised, though, if he goes somewhere else? I don't think so. Marie confirms she's a female with her comment. Let's see. Any good signing day surprises for the Dogs? Jason Ray asks. I think if it's a surprise, I think that Damon Wilson may be the biggest news of the day. Jordan Hall maybe taking his time. And he tweeted something about Florida, but I think he's still going to be a dog as far as I know. And then other than that, man, I don't know. I mean, Peyton Woodring, the kicker, just got his letter of intent in. I know everyone was, sitting there with bated breath on that one. Roderick Robinson, he signed, just got his stuff in. So, I don't know. Nifty little class for Georgia. Just another, I would call it elite class. I know they're not the number one. I know that, that's going to go to Bama. Georgia at 94.151. Bama at 95.376 in the score there. So that's tough ground to make up. Bama's still a force to be reckoned with. Now, what happens if Cormani McClain leaves Miami and goes to Colorado? Good for the Canes. They're number 3 right now in our consensus rankings. But maybe you see Ohio State throw some bows up there and get in the top 3. I don't know. But maybe you're seeing the NIL impact with a school like Miami surging back into these top recruiting rankings again. Ohio State at 4 right now, Notre Dame at 5, Texas at 6. Arch Manning brought a lot of talent with him. Imagine what Georgia's class would be if Arch Manning committed, though. Probably number 1, I'd think. Just based on the talent that Georgia already is able to attract on its own, Texas kind of needed a shot in the arm from Arch. Slip to 2. Poor UGA, says Andy Stowe. Slowest signing day ever, says John Wayne. I want to tell you, partner. It's slow, but is that bad? Is that bad, John Wayne? I think the fact that you're not waiting around and you're not twiddling your thumbs, holding your breath for guys, like you're already going to be the second best recruiting class in the country, and you don't really have to sweat it out. I don't know if that's a bad thing. Marshawn Lloyd, will he be a dog? I'm going to say no. And I don't know. I don't have any intel about that. But I do know that Georgia feels really good about Ra Thomas. I think they feel good about Lovett. If you can get both of those guys, that's a dub. And then as far as Travis Hunter goes, you heard Jeremy Johnson confirm it's not just as simple as this guy going to Colorado to follow Deion Sanders. And Chad Simmons reported that it's down to Colorado and Georgia. So do the math. If it's not Colorado, you have a chance to keep an elite Georgia talent in the state. Would you trade that? Would you trade Justice Haynes or Caleb Downs for that? I think you probably would. John 316 asks, does Georgia feel set at the quarterback position for the foreseeable future? I don't know if you can ever feel set, right? Just the nature of this thing with guys hitting the portal. If you don't play right away, it's a miracle. It's a testament to the staff that they've kept Carson Beck here. I'm not reporting this, but I mean, would you be surprised if Brock Vandagriff hit the portal? Again, I'm not reporting that. I'm just saying, like, in general, in a vacuum, any of these quarterbacks, maybe Gunnar Stockton feels like he's got a little bit more eligibility, but I wouldn't blame these guys if they hit the portal is what I'm trying to say. Not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't blame them because it's there. You got to get your reps. You got to get film. So I don't know if Georgia can ever feel too comfortable, and I don't think Kirby Smart ever does. But you got to feel confident in Carson Beck. And Jake Rowe kind of dropped a nugget when we spoke on the Georgia show on Monday night. Pardon me. Got my tea bags here, a tribute to Coach Leach. That Carson Beck is viewed within the walls at Georgia as a massive development success story. And you can take that to all of your buddies and all the knuckleheads on Twitter who said that Georgia couldn't develop a quarterback. They haven't had to show it yet this year because Stetson's been the guy. But let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what Carson Beck does next year with Brock Bowers and A.D. Mitchell back in the fold, Lab McConkey back in the fold. Kyrus Jackson has eligibility. He'll have a transfer portal decision to make. Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint may have a transfer portal decision to make. Jackson Meeks may have a transfer portal decision to make. But look at the talent that's come in. Dylan Bell, he's come on the scene. Now, I don't think he's come on the scene. Yeah, you're right, John Wayne. Stetson was developed at Georgia. Look at his 2020 tapes now. Got benched. And now he's a national championship quarterback, Heisman finalist. What was I saying, though? The receiving talent coming in. Dylan Bell has established himself. The transfer portal is going to help you. You bring Ra in. You got Tyler Williams. You got these guys we talked about, Anthony Evans. I don't know if Yazid Haynes will be a contributor right away, but you got dudes now. You got a class now. You got something you can work with. Let's see. D. Brown. Let me hop off of Marshawn Lloyd's page here and get back to where I was originally. 20 out of, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20. I got 21. Unless I'm missing somebody that we have as an enrollee. Yeah, I think maybe Gabe Harris. Yeah, so we're at 20 because Gabe Harris doesn't have his in yet officially, but he's on campus as an early enrollee. So, like I said earlier, that would be awkward if that doesn't flesh out. So, yeah, we're still waiting on Mpemba, Cottrell, Jamal Merriweather, and then Damon Wilson will probably come in, I'm guessing. And then, what else? Jordan Hall. Maybe he'll shock the world. I don't know, but seems like a dog. You're asking about Arik Gilbert. Will he come back? I don't know. I don't know about that one. That's been kind of tricky to navigate and follow and keep tabs on this year. We may have an update on that later today. Gunnar Stockton. What about him, Rhett? Do you have a more specific question? Mpemba sign. All right, so if Mpemba sign, you're at 21. Yeah, Mpemba just came in. All right, so Mpemba's in. There's that edge talent. Thank you, Jason Ray. Gunnar Stockton, it seems like he's kind of the Stetson Bennett 2.0 right now, just in the sense of he's making waves at practice and he's frustrating this defense at practice. That's what Stetson did. Now, go in and do it in a game. See what you can do in a game. Do I think he'll see reps next year? I think he can compete. I think he can push Carson Beck, but I think Georgia, if you ask them, I think they're expecting Carson Beck to be the guy. If he's not the guy and someone else is playing better, then they're going to go with that guy, obviously. But I think all signs are pointing to Carson Beck. Got 10 minutes left. Thanks for joining us, guys. Please hit subscribe. Thank y'all for commenting. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Does Brock leave? Brock's still got another year of eligibility, brother. So I don't think so. I think he could go to the NFL. Personally, I think they would let him. I think they'd let him in. They wouldn't card him. They wouldn't ID him. They'd let him into the draft probably. But no, Brock Bowers is back for at least another year. Wink, wink. But I do appreciate y'all keeping the comment section lively today. Georgia with another elite class. Looking like the number 2 class in the on-3 consensus. That's a tough word to say when you got a congested nose. Consensus. Pinch your nose right now and try to say consensus. It's hard. Oh, Brock Vandergriff. Sorry, D. Brown. That's like I was saying a minute ago. I don't know. I'm not saying that he will, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does. Would you? Doesn't leave Georgia in the best position. They're going to have to sell him. They're going to have to say, hey, can we get you on another NIL billboard? He's already on an NIL billboard that I've seen over by the Loop, I think. But they're going to want him back. He's a talented dude. I'm not disparaging Brock Vandergriff. It's just the way these competitions work, right? Yeah, everyone thought Carson Beck was going to leave, but he didn't. And now, look, he's probably about to have the keys to this offense. Yeah, great point, D. Brown. Take over a team as a senior with the top 2 defense. Look at the recruits and the prospects these guys are stacking up. MJ Sherman, that's a name that we have. I've not heard anything, but it's a name that we've discussed amongst ourselves as a candidate to leave. All right, and that doesn't mean he's going to, but he's a candidate to leave, sure. Kind of do the math, right? Look at who's in front of you. Look at their stats. Look at who's coming back. All right, so for the last few minutes before I wrap up, I'm going to rank the best names in this Georgia recruiting class. There are a lot of names across the country, and I like to kind of do the best name team. If you kept up with Coffee Town, you know I'm a big fan of a good name. But I'm going to do the top 5 names in Georgia's recruiting class for 2023. Now, if Smoke Bowie comes, he blows this whole thing sky high, and I've got to re-rack the thing. And I got to go back to the drawing board, and I got to get Smoke Bowie in there at number 1. There's no doubt about it. But as of right now, I'm going to say from number 5 down, the number 5 best name in the Georgia 2023 recruiting class, Yazid Haynes. That just sounds like a guy that's fast. So Yazid Haynes, number 5 on the all Georgia 2023 signing class. Travis Hunter. Is Travis Hunter a top 5 name, Dog Man Forever? I don't think Travis Hunter is a top 5 name. I think he's a top 5 guy. Thanks, L. Bryant. Jason Ray, I hope I feel better soon too. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. When I say name, I mean his name is great. Like, not anything about his talent. I just mean his name is good. So that's why Yazid Haynes is number 5. All right, the number 4 best name in the 2023 Georgia recruiting class is Jonel Aguero. And I don't know if you say that with a little bit of Latin flavor like that. The J may even be silent. Hey, say what, Josh? Asking if Hunter is going to Colorado. That has not been decided. He could still go to Georgia. And as a matter of fact, he could still go to Georgia. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Jonel Aguero, number 4 all-name team for the 2023 Georgia signing class. Coming up next at number 3 in the Dale spot in the 2023 all-name team for Georgia's 2023 signing class is Bo Hughley. And this is kind of a package deal because Bo, as we addressed earlier, it's the name and it's the mug right here. That guy looks like a Bo Hughley. And Bo Hughley just sounds like a guy that you don't want to mess with. So I'm going with Bo Hughley at the number 3 Dale Earnhardt spot for best name in the 2023 Georgia signing class. We got 2 guys left. Who's it going to be? Number 2, Mr. NIL offensive lineman himself, Monroe Freeling. 6'7.5", 285 pounds. He played for the Oceanside Collegiate Academy Sharks. He is estimated to have $148,000 NIL value by On3's calculations. He is Monroe Freeling. And I think you have to say that name with a little bit of added emphasis as well. All right, number one on the best name, the all-name team for the Georgia 2023 signing class. If you're just hopping on right now, I promise I've actually talked to experts about this signing class. So you're going to want to go back and watch the replay of this or listen to the replay on a podcast, which I will post as soon as I'm done here. That's where all the real analysis is. This is just a special thing at the end for everyone that stuck it out or everyone that's tuning in right now. The best names of the Georgia 2023 signing class. Number 1, I think you know already. It's Peyton Woodring. Look at this guy's mop. Look at him. Those frosted, mulleted tips. Peyton Woodring, the number 1 best name in the Georgia 2023 signing class. All right, guys. I love y'all. This has been 2 hours of pure joy. I'm going to go get some more tea, and I'm going to follow along with Georgia Signing Day news over at DawgsHQ.com. I invite you to do the same. There is a big announcement coming up today. Damon Wilson, around 3:30, I've been told. We feel good that he's going to go to Georgia. Stick with DawgsHQ.com. I hope that this broadcast has sold y'all on our space in the market. We are new. We are throwing our elbows into a very crowded Georgia football market, but we're having fun doing it. We are the On3 Georgia fan site, DawgsHQ.com. Subscribe to us right now, $10 until the kickoff of the 2023 season. That's a special deal. You don't want to miss out on that. For premium insight with the transfer portal news coming up, some premium evaluations and breakdowns of this Georgia signing class. This is free, guys. This is free. But our premium info over at DawgsHQ.com goes deeper. It's better. I know it's hard to believe, and it's worth it. So I invite y'all to do that. I invite y'all to hit subscribe on this channel. We're live after every Georgia football game. We're live every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and we're live every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern with a lot more where this came from. This has been our signing day special. We'll talk much more about the Peach Bowl, the college football playoff, and the transfer portal in the days ahead, the weeks ahead as well. So lock it in with DawgsHQ.com and with the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. You're all damn good dogs in your own right, unless you're not a damn good dog. If you cheer for another team, you're welcome to hang out with us too. We love to have you in the comments, mixing it up with all these dogs. Y'all have a great signing day. Enjoy it. This is special, Georgia special, rarefied air, rarefied signing class, rarefied coaching staff. And it's about to be, I think, a rarefied transfer portal season for Georgia as it continues to bolster this class, continues to get a lot of good receiving talent in. They're bringing it in. They're bringing it. They're bringing the heat. And we're going to continue to do the same. Appreciate you, Juice ATL. A W stream. We won. That's all we can try to do is try to win. Y'all have a great one. Catch you next time. Peace.